Welcome to the Mortgage and Money Morning Show. It's Joel Scott with very special guest Scott McCracken, who is a lawyer here in town with Schmidt Law Legal Services. And Scott specializes in real estate law. You do corporate law, you do employment law, and you do wills and estates law. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did. Yeah, it's anything law for the most part, I guess.
I love that you had to think about the checklist in your head and how far
Yeah,
you've gone. So, listen, thanks for joining us today. Because one of the things we wanted to
no
talk about
worries.
is what the lawyer's role is in a mortgage transaction. Because when I first got into this business and when would send files to the lawyers, it was kind of like the land of Oz. You never knew what was happening behind the scenes, but everything just kind of worked out in the end and everybody was happy. So when people ask me a lot of the time, well, do I need a lawyer to finish my mortgage? My answer is always yes. And I'd like to sort of let you give an explanation as to why a lawyer is so important in a mortgage transaction and what service you guys provide.
Well, I mean, obviously it's good to have a lawyer for plenty of reasons, but I mean the main reason is a lot of banks require a legal opinion on the mortgage, because a lot of lenders actually don't have a lawyer, or they have a legal department, but they don't have a lawyer representing them on that transaction. They are sending an instruction to a lawyer who can assess the title to the property and say, yes, this mortgage is going to be on property, and it's going to be a first charge, which means that they don't have anybody else that can claim against them and secure their payment against the house. And also, especially on a purchase transaction, for example, lawyers, we look into the title of a property and see and make sure that the person is getting free and clear title to the property, which is just basically saying that, you're not going to buy a house and then have, a year down the road, someone coming and saying, oh, this is actually my place. It's not yours. Sorry, you have to leave.
And people would be surprised that actually does happen.
I mean, not so much anymore, to be honest, but it does happen. I guess I've never seen it, but I've we just need to make sure that you're getting a free and clear title to the property. It's the biggest purchase of your life or a big refinance, and it's sometimes good to have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed and just facilitate the transaction. And lawyers are the only ones that actually have the authority now to register transfers or deeds.
Right.
There are certain circumstances where you can do a refinance without a lawyer. There are a few title insurance companies that allow it to happen for certain lenders, but they're few and far between anymore. So.
And one of the things that I think the theme that I hear about there when you're talking about sort of what the lawyer's role is ultimately is just protection for the client, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you need someone that's going to be in your corner. I mean, the bank, obviously, they're lending you the money. They're going to want to make sure that they're getting their money back at some point, and then you're going to want to make sure that you're actually having a property that you can secure the mortgage against, and just protecting yourself for the future.
So let's talk about some of the specific functions that you guys handle behind the scenes for people. Like you mentioned title there, so there would be a title search. There would be various forms of insurance. What are some sort of standard actions that you guys have to take to get the mortgage closed for a typical client?
So typically the process, as you would know, they come to you, the client comes to you, you do your mortgage commitment, and then it goes off to the bank. Once everything is approved, it generally comes to the lawyer by the form of what's called mortgage instructions. And what they do is they tell me and our clerks what we need to do to prepare the mortgage, what the terms are, when the first payment's going to be, what we're registering against the title, how much money they're actually sending us, and what we have to pay, like what we have to, I guess what we have to confirm. For example, if you have a client that has to, consolidate some debt or something like that, then we would have to assess, or not assess, but I guess obtain payout statements for, like, if they're a vehicle payment or something like that. We have to gather all that information and then prepare the charge, which is the mortgage, send that off to the bank for approval. And when they say, yep, that's okay, and then they send us the money. And if it's in a purchase transaction, we couple that with the money that the clients bring in, send it off to the other side, being the seller's lawyer, and buy your house or put a mortgage on it. With the refinance, if it's a different bank, we have to obtain a discharge statement and ensure and follow up and make sure that the original mortgage that was on the place has been discharged, which means taken off title. Sometimes it takes a few months to do that, but we have to obtain a statement and then make sure that we have enough money to send to them by certified check to make sure that they're going to release it from title.
So there's a lot of moving parts going on in the background that the average person never should or would have to deal with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just basically, my goal is to have, clients understand what we're doing, but really just need to come in once, sign their papers, have an understanding of what the process is, and then let us do our job.
Uh,
Um,
there's two sort of key issues I'd like to see if you can give a little bit more in-depth information to, because we get a lot of questions about this too. And one of them is title insurance. And do I need title insurance? And what does title insurance do? And why do I have to pay $300 for it?
I guess I should start by saying a little caveat that anything that I'm talking about here is just strictly information
Yeah.
given to you and your followers by a lawyer. I'm not by any means giving legal advice here.
Yeah.
If you want legal advice, you can contact me, but this is just more information purposes. Strictly speaking, title insurance, it's not technically legally required. However, it's always recommended, and pretty well every lender requires it as a portion of their transaction. And what it does is it protects the client against anything that was not known on closing, but could have been discoverable through a bunch of searches. So we can do all kinds of searches, zoning compliance, some of which we do. And, we could find out, if there was a construction lien on the place, or if there was someone that did work that may put a construction lien on the place. But ultimately, you don't want to have to pay a lawyer to do all of those searches. And it's still not going to 100% guarantee that that nothing might come out of the woodworks after closing.
Right.
Like say, for example, you're buying a place and the seller has said, yes, I've paid the taxes for the year. They told their lawyer that. The lawyer that's selling says, oh yeah, they showed me a bill that's been paid, but it's been forged or something like that. You find it after closing. You move into your house, and then all of a sudden the municipality hands you a tax bill for $3,000. And you're going to say, well, that's not really my responsibility. And the municipality, they don't care. They're going to say, well, we want our money. And now this is your house, so we're going to get it from you. That's where title insurance would step in. There are other ways to ensure that the seller has to pay it if they've represented that, but sometimes you can't get a hold of them, you can't find them. Title insurance steps in and pays that, and then it becomes their problem. That's the biggest thing I've seen it used for. There's certain things like open building permits, and sometimes that just weren't found out prior to closing that just kind of are a safeguard on that. But yeah, it's a one-time only fee. It protects you for the life that you've owned the house. It's a requirement by, I'm pretty sure, all lenders. I haven't seen one that doesn't require it yet.
Yeah.
And it's just a good protection.
I was going to say protection. I'm sensing a theme of protection here.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, like you said, it's the biggest purchase of your life, or one of the biggest purchases. And I think protection is pretty key in this.
Well, you know what? One of the things that we're never protected from is taxes. And I know in any kind of real estate transaction, often one of the sort of, for some people, for some buyers, especially, it's a bit of a surprise, and that is the concept of land transfer tax. And nobody seems to know how it's calculated or why, although you can look it up if you want. But when it comes to land transfer tax, it's a fee that has to be paid. Can you explain to people when that fee is payable and sort of how it's calculated, or a rough estimate of it?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the short answer is it's always applicable. There are certain instances where it's not. I think the best way to do it is actually just ask your lawyer, or if you're concerned about whether or not it's applicable, I mean, assume that it is. And then if talk to your lawyer and say, hey, like, are there any exemptions here? So there are certain exemptions, and I don't really want to get into the details of all the exemptions because everything is extremely case specific.
Right.
And typical lawyer answer, right? It's like yes and no, maybe, possibly, but probably. There are like resources where you can find it where it's calculated. One potential example is if it's a gift from a family member to, a house that's free and clear, no mortgage on it, and it's a mother gifting it to their son or something like that.
Right.
And mom, if you're listening to this, my mom, if you're listening to this and you want to gift me a house, I will take it.
My mom too, by the way.
Yeah. yeah, perfect. It's that would be one potential exemption, but again, there are instances where that doesn't apply. So like I said, it's extremely case specific, and it is a requirement to be paid on the majority of transactions, especially purchase transactions. First time home buyers do get a credit on that, but then again, the first time home buyer can be a little bit nuanced as well. And the language around first time home buyers is saying that you never owned or had interest in a property anywhere in the world at any time.
And with first time home buyers, with first time home buyers, they can apply for the rebate and get the land transfer tax back, correct?
Yeah, it actually gets paid. Like, it doesn't even get paid Like we do that for them. Essentially, we just have an affidavit that they sign, and then it doesn't actually get charged. It's up to $4,000 on ownership of the house. I mean, if you're buying it with your partner and they're a first time home buyer, but you're not, then you can get, if you're taking 50%, you can get $2,000 off.
Right.
The land transfer tax. It's a one time only thing too. You can never get it twice.
Yeah, just once.
Yeah, there's other things where you kind of think RSP deductions and that kind of stuff. I think you're allowed to qualify as a first time home buyer more than once. There's a certain circumstance. Talk to your mortgage person or your financial advisor on that, or your tax or your accountant. But
I think
transfer tax.
Before we let you go, the sort of a blanket question of, and this is based on your experience and dealing with real estate closings all the time. What are a couple of key pitfalls that you see that you would recommend people try and avoid when it comes to closing their mortgage, and it's or areas where a closing can get snagged up because somebody's not prepared or hasn't been aware of something? What are a couple of key pitfalls that you'd recommend people be aware of?
I mean, the biggest thing, if it's a refinance, is timing for the most part. I mean, and refinances often, they may not close on the day of, they may take a little bit longer. They can be extended. Just based on maybe having, if we have to prepare a bunch of documents or have to get a bunch of stuff to the lender to approve, and it may take a while. And then some lenders wire us the money, and wires can take anywhere from 5 minutes to 3 hours or more. So if we don't have it in time and then they send us the money, we might not get it till after 5 o'clock. And if we get it after 5, we can't really do anything with title until the next day. So timing is the biggest thing on refinances. And if we have to prepare a bunch of documents, I would advise any of your clients that if they are refinancing and there are a lot of things that they have to get in terms of payouts and whatnot, to have that all ready so that when we come and knocking for it, it's just like, here you go, here you go, here you go.
Yep.
And then, try and get it into the lender's hand. And just know too, in this, there's a lot of real estate transactions going on right now, and every lender, I'm sure, is backed right up, needs a lot of time, and has to have the right amount of time to review everything and that. And I guess just one more pitfall, I guess, if you're doing a purchase, for example, and you're buying a house, but you could be part of what's called a chain, where you have the people that are buying you may have to sell, but the people that are buying your place also have to sell. And that's a chain going down the road before it gets to the place that you want to buy, before you get your money or what have you. That can be a bit of a pain as well.
Yeah, because
everything's delayed. Yeah.
If you've got multiple closings on the same day, for all those funds to transfer and all those documents to finalize on the same day can get a bit tricky.
Yeah, and if one person gets hung up, then it could be an issue. And for that reason, I suggest that if anyone's closing a purchase or a mortgage, try not to do it on a Friday, because a delay on a Friday turns into 3 or 4 days. Because you got the weekend, you can't do anything on the weekend. Closings at the beginning of the week are a little better, because if you have an issue and it has to be delayed a day or two, no one's out all that much. But Fridays of a long weekend, for example, are even worse, really, when you think about it. So, but that's the biggest piece of advice that I could give is, if you know that you have to provide a bunch of documentation, get it ready as soon as you can, and advise when you're closing, and just calmer heads prevail. Keep calm.
You're right about documents. I have this discussion a lot with clients because they say, "Why do I have to provide all this documentation?" That's just the way it is. If the lender asks for 10 pieces of documents, that's what they're asking for, because they're not going to give you $400,000 on your handshake and a nice smile on Facebook. So it is what it is.
The one with the money. Yeah.
Well, it is what it is, and people tend to get frustrated by the amount of paperwork, but most of the paperwork is designed to protect you and the lender. And when it comes to the legal transaction, and from your perspective, from the lawyers, it's designed to protect the customer and protect your client. So you guys do some pretty amazing work behind the scenes that keeps this industry flowing nice and smoothly. And I know we both put collar shirts on for the day today because we were going to shoot some video.
You're right. Yep.
I will race you to the closet to see if you can throw a t-shirt on right after this, because it's late on a Friday.
I've got one underneath this. Just coming off right after.
Oh, come on, man.
Yeah. I just want to have one quick shout out, actually, when you're talking about what we do behind the scenes as lawyers. Any lawyer here that does real estate law is going to tell you that they would not be nearly as successful as they are without their clerks. Their clerks are the be all and end all to these transactions. They're the ones running around and making sure that everything gets done. So I just wanted to point that out for anyone that's listening to that. The clerks are worth their weight in gold when it comes to this kind of stuff. So,
honest to God, I never thought I'd say shout out to law clerks.
Yeah. Well, here we
That's
go. Right. So
that's
yeah.
that's a first.
It's a law clerks and legal assistants. Exactly.
Scotty, thank you so much for your time.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
sharing some advice and some expertise. Again, for people that are paying attention today, this is not actual legal advice. We're talking about the legal process, what
Yeah.
happens behind the scenes of a mortgage. So if you do have legal questions that you want to ask, please call Scott or your personal lawyer that you're dealing with now. Scotty, how do people get in touch with you guys?
So the easiest way to get in touch with me would be, you can find us on Facebook at Schmidt Law Legal Services. You can give us a call. Numbers 289-436-0113. Send me an email, scott@schmidtlegalservices.com, or, talk to Joel. Joel can get in contact with me. Whatever works, Sam. I'm around. We have
Great.
offices in Port Hope and Coburg, so, and obviously we're working from remotely from home for the most part, but, I'm actually sitting in a closet right now where some people might think a lawyer deserves to be, but here we are. So
You're
yeah.
telling me you keep your law degree hanging up in a closet? I don't believe it. Forget it.
It's a nice closet with a high ceiling, but
Okay.
yeah.
Listen, my friend, have a wonderful day. Thanks for being on the Mortgage and Money Morning Show. And again, I appreciate your expertise and advice. And I hope
No
people that have
worries.
questions give you a shout. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.